Welcome back to the Matt Return. I'm Andrew Deal.
I'm AJ Piazza.
And today we're going to be talking about the Penn State wrestlers that transferred to Oklahoma State and how that could set up going into next year's national outlook, as well as looking at Penn State wrestlers who competed in the U23 Pan-American Championships over the weekend. So, AJ, what really stood out to you about the three Penn State wrestlers that are making their way to Stillwater?
Yeah, I'll start with Gary Steen. I think we all thought 133, they really had to cut down that weight class specifically. That was one that we really all looked at as a really deep one, as they had multiple guys, like 5+ at that weight class. And Gary Steen was just one of the odd men out, especially with, Ono joining and potentially wrestling there as well. Now, the only thing that confuses me, right, is I don't believe he'll really see much time on the mat for the Cowboys next year, with Rin Sakamoto and JJ McComas really competing for that starting spot, it seems. So I'm a little confused on why he chose, Oklahoma State for the destination, but I guess with the David Taylor connection, it makes more sense than I think. I would think.
Yeah, and I see this really being Rin Sakamoto for Oklahoma State because, like last year, or this past season, I guess you could say, he only competed in one match. It was against Drake Ayala against Iowa. Now, he lost 11-1, but it was a lot closer. It was his first time wrestling against a non-Oklahoma State person in folk style. He made his way over from Japan. So similar. I'm not comparing him to Ono because Ono is levels above him, but it has that same feel where he was eased into competition, and now this year it seems like he would be the guy to wrestle at 133, which really leaves out a spot for Gary Steen. So that'll be interesting to see where he settles in there. Moving up to, I believe he's going to end up wrestling 174, Alex Fakundo. What'd you think? I think it was it wasn't a surprise that he went into the portal.
No, and my point that I was going to get to kind of, I guess, after Gary Steen was that you see these other two wrestlers that committed there, and they're, as of right now, predicted to start, and they're going to get an opportunity that they really wouldn't have at Penn State, especially next season. And for Fakundo, he's moving up 2 weight classes, kind of like Levi, exactly what Levi Haynes did actually after 157, but Fakundo would have been behind, again, Tyler Kasak. And don't forget, PJ Duke coming in next year as well also bumps Fakundo down another spot at 57. And for him, this was pretty expected. I think everyone thought he'd go to Oklahoma State. And with Dean Hamady, no longer having eligibility, it really sets him up to start for Oklahoma State next year.
Yeah, and he clearly showed that he has that level to be a national contender. We saw it at the beginning of the season. He was in competition with Tyler Kasak for that 157 spot. And now he's going to take that jump up, and it would really be cool to see in the national championships Fakundo versus Levi Haynes, 2 David Taylor guys going against each other, one with David Taylor in his corner, the other with Cale Sanderson in his corner. That would be an ideal national championship match if I were to pick it.
Yeah, and even just if Fakundo was to stay at 157, you look at many other schools, he would definitely start at the majority of schools. Just with Penn State having Tyler Kasak, there was really no opening for him, or even at 165 and 74. So he just really no spot for him for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, that's kind of a big
theme.
Yeah, that's a big theme with some of these backups is that they can start basically anywhere else. I saw at one point on Twitter, someone came up with the idea for Penn State to start a B team and see where they score. And it listed them, and I'm like, that team could finish top 10. That is a very good team. It would be very inexperienced, but it would be a very good team. And with this past season specifically, you figure Fakundo would be in there, Gary Steen would probably be in there. and then Zack Ryder as well, who we'll get to in a second. But Fakundo is definitely one of the bigger gets out of these, where
definitely.
he's definitely going to start. He's definitely going to be in that national competition for the title, especially with, like you said, Dean Hamady leaving, Keegan O'Toole leaving, Carson Harchla was a senior. So there's multiple seniors that are not going to be there anymore, and it sets up where like it'll be Levi Haynes, Lenny Pinto probably.
Yep.
And then obviously Fakundo. Now to the big one, and this one came as a surprise, but it also didn't in a sense after the news that Rocco Welsh was transferring to Penn State from Ohio State. Zack Ryder enters the portal about 2 days later. 3 or 4 days after that, commits to Oklahoma State.
Yep. Yeah. For me, let me break this down. Let me break down what I was thinking when this all started with Rocco Welsh committing to Penn State. I believed at first it would have been a competition between the two to start at that weight class. I believe they're similar and like equal. I'd say definitely both could start and, well, now will start at different schools. Would be very interested to see them wrestle each other at some point this season. But clearly, Zack Ryder didn't believe he'd get, I guess, maybe that chance, or he wasn't guaranteed to start when Welsh committed. So he entered the portal and committed to Oklahoma State, which, as we just named, two other Nittany Lions did. But for Zack Ryder, he's a guy that excited me last season with Starachi being out of eligibility for next year. He had some ranked opponents that he beat and was in control of some of those matches early on in the year. At the Army Black Knight Invitational, he really stood out there, I believe. And he's a guy that I'm curious to see how he's going to do it at 84, especially with, some of these bigger names not being in the weight class anymore. No Starachi, no Kakaisen, no Plot, obviously, for Oklahoma State, and no Chris Foca from Cornell. And that's 4 of the top 5 right there. And Max McAnally is obviously that guy that everyone looks at as the next guy. But then you could look at that next tier being Welsh and Ryder and really see how they're going to compete. And for Zack Ryder, this makes sense. He's going to start and definitely is a guy that has a lot of potential, being, I believe, a top 5 recruit on Flow Wrestling.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be curious, and I really hope to see him and Welsh go against each other at the NCAAs next year.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see, and obviously I think the crowd would really play into that matchup.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how the rankings play out. I think beginning of the season, you're going to see a McAnally, Welsh will probably be in there. McAnally's number 1, I think. I don't think that's a question.
I don't think it's a question either.
We've seen before the freshmen Zack Ryder will be a redshirt freshman, so the freshmen that don't have much experience don't really get ranked right away. They'll have to work their way up. We saw that with Josh Barr this year.
And Luke Littledahl
as well. So he won't start off ranked or ranked high.
Yeah.
And then by midway through the season, he'll be a top 10 guy, almost certainly, I'd say, with this really opening up after the 2 guys in the finals no longer going to be in college wrestling.
Yeah, now I have a question. Where would you put Welsh just early on prediction? Just because he didn't wrestle last year, so I'm curious how that will affect his ranking, even though the previous season he was one of the best. And, that was at a different weight class, too.
Yeah, so he wrestled 174 2 years ago, faced Starachi in the national finals.
Yeah.
Starachi makes the jump up to 184. Welsh does too, for the most part. Then red shirts. So Starachi then ends up going undefeated, winning his 5th national title. Welsh now will be technically going from 74 to 84 in competing seasons. And I would probably have him, I'm not going to be aggressive with this. I'd say he'd sit around like in the top 10, I'd say.
Yeah, I was gonna say 8 to 10.
Yeah,
to start.
Like I don't think he'll be top 5, but I think
No, I
he'll
don't
work
think so
himself into there.
Yeah, I could see it. I definitely could see it. I
And
could see
then-
both wrestlers being the top 5 by the
Yeah.
season comes to an end.
And I think that he'll have other guys to be able to really build that up, depending on what Iowa does with Gabe Arnold and Angelo Ferrari.
Yeah.
And then Silas Allred was a junior this year, so he'll be back. Jackson Smith from Maryland. So there's a lot of Big Ten guys that are going to be back despite some of these seniors leaving.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look even further down to see
Shane
if there's...
Cartagna-Walsh from Rutgers is a freshman. He'll
freshman,
be back.
so he'll be back. Could maybe see him make a jump. I think Rutgers is really building something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that could be a team to look out for in a sense. I don't think they'll do anything crazy, but like they're going to continue to grow, I think.
Yeah,
Rutgers.
they're building something. I'd say it's in the early on process of
Yeah.
that, but they'd be a team that I'd say to watch out for in the next like maybe 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
Just when they get some more like talent even behind the guys they have now.
right. And I mean, who knows? They get hot, they can make a jump like Nebraska did this year. Nebraska finished second, I believe.
Yep.
So that kind of opens it up where, going into the Nationals, it was Penn State, big drop off, Oklahoma State, Iowa in there somewhere, either second or third, either one.
Yep.
Even though Iowa beat them during the Dole season, but there's multiple. Two guys like not really score any points for them for Iowa, so that stuff plays a factor as well going into the national titles. But it's going to be really interesting at 184.
Yeah. I'm just curious to see how the start and the end is going to be very different. That's at least what I think. So I'm curious to see what the start's going to look like for next year, just where those two are going to be ranked.
I said this about a week or two ago.
Yeah.
Would make sense for Eric Gibson to go to Rutgers, to transfer to Rutgers. He's still in the portal.
Yep.
Was at Penn State. His brother is currently at Rutgers. He's expected to wrestle this year. I think he redshirted last year. He was at Bishop McCourt. So is Eric Gibson.
Yeah.
2 years ago. And seeing posts and stuff, like I saw some things where it's like Eric Gibson in the portal, and obviously it could be a brother supporting a brother.
Yeah.
But there's stuff like, don't be surprised if Rutgers reaches out, and Rutgers this and Rutgers that with Eric Gibson. There's been nothing there yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's where Eric Gibson goes. And I'm now looking, I want to see if Rutgers' 174 was Jackson Turley, who was ranked pretty low and is also a senior. So there's an opening there.
There is an opening.
Where Eric Gibson could go to the same place where his brother is, wrestle with his brother, and actually wrestle.
Yes. He's a guy that was in a deep weight class for Penn State, so you didn't really hear his name often, but has potential to be a solid ranked wrestler at multiple other schools. And we just said Rutgers, getting more talent and depth with talent. This could be one of those moves that they can get in the portal.
Yeah, and he was sitting behind, so he's 174.
Yeah.
During his time at Penn State, he sat behind Carter Starachi and Levi Haynes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
There's
exactly.
not much you can really do with that.
Yes, I agree. And that's why I'm saying I think if you're Rutgers, why not go out and get a guy that sat behind those two for the last 2 seasons. Those are two pretty good. I know Starachi's now at 84, but he was the exact same as he was at 74.
Yeah.
Those are two pretty good guys to, I guess, be in the wrestling room with every single day.
Yeah, and he might be able to bring over some of that Penn State wrestling mentality to Rutgers.
Yeah.
And continue to build that program up. One other thing before we go over to the internationals, Thomas Gilman, Oklahoma State assistant coach, is now back at Penn State for the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club as a lightweight assistant coach.
Yeah, this confused me a bit because I would have expected him to be with like Penn State wrestling, like
Yeah.
one of the assistant coaches that, we would actually see at, matches. But to be an assistant coach for the wrestling club is really interesting to me. And I'm wondering, I'm going really deep into this, but you know what? Here's my theory. Ono was just with the wrestling club, right? He's a lightweight guy.
Yeah.
Maybe Thomas Gilman's thinking he can coach more of guys like that in the future. I don't know. Maybe it's just totally thinking too deep into it. But that's my theory. Because for someone to be an assistant coach at a school like Oklahoma State, to take a job for like Penn State's wrestling club is very interesting to me because Oklahoma State is a top program as well.
Yeah.
And, not that the wrestling club's not like good. Obviously, Penn State has a ton of guys there that coach Aaron Brooks. And Carter Sriracha will probably be involved next year. And there's plenty of guys. But to see someone go from a top 3 school to the Penn State Wrestling Club is very interesting to me.
Like, it also, like, I feel like you're, in a sense, talking it down a little bit. Like, he is still going to be in the room.
True.
With those guys that are on the team right now. He will be sparring with Luke Lillidahl, with Ono, with Braden Davis, with Marcus Blaze, with Shane Van Ness probably.
Yeah, probably.
So he's still going to be training those guys. It's just not as an assistant on the actual team.
Yeah. I thought as for a guy like this, he'd want a position on the actual team. I guess that was my logic with it because they all do train together. So that part, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I would
It's basically just like the official title.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and this could also be Cale getting the last laugh this year with this whole rivalry that's brewing.
True.
There's rumors that Oklahoma State was trying to make a last push for Rocco Welsh. Cale then solidified that. Then Oklahoma State goes and takes Zack Ryder. Penn State then gets Thomas Gilman.
Yeah. You could also say the same thing about Jaden James. I believe Oklahoma State tried to get him, and it did not work. And he committed to Penn State. So, this could be just part of that little rivalry going on there between the two.
Yeah, it would definitely set up a really fun duel if it were to ever happen. I don't think it's going to.
I agree with you, but just imagine. All right, here we go. I'm gonna go set the scene. It's a Friday night, not a Saturday. It's a Friday night.
Okay.
BJC duel. I was tempted to even say maybe an outdoor Beaver Stadium duel, but I don't know.
It would have to be like really early.
It'd have to be like during the fall. I don't even know if it could work here.
Right.
But so we'll set the scene. Friday night, Penn State, maybe like a little like a right after you get back from Thanksgiving break weekend. Friday night against Oklahoma State at the BJC. How fast would that sell out? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sold out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be so fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of just wrestling fans would want also.
Yeah. I don't see it happening because
either.
Anytime David Taylor, Oklahoma State was brought up in a press conference, Cale kind of didn't fully answer the question. Same thing goes with David Taylor. Penn State related questions, didn't really answer the question, just talked about Oklahoma State.
Yeah, except to be fair, one of them, the ice cream machine, was very annoying and very loud, and you might not, I don't know how that worked, but, that was frustrating, so maybe that interrupted the question. But yes, you definitely right. It seems like they both kind of wanted to downplay that a bit, so I don't think it would happen either, but it would be really cool if it did.
Yeah, it would be the duel of the season. It would be 1 versus 2.
Yeah.
The mentor versus the mentee, I guess you could say.
I thought you were gonna go with like a apprentice.
Yeah, that too. Or like I've thought of like the Karate Kid, like
good one.
Mr.
Okay.
Miyagi,
Okay.
and
It's a good one.
yeah. So
one.
there could be those comparisons with
Yep.
that because Cal coached David Taylor. Now they would be coaching against each other.
Yep.
They did it 3 times in the semifinals of the NCAA tournaments. So why not do it for a duel? It would definitely set up some intriguing matchups as well.
Yeah, we would get that Welsh versus Ryder match, and there would also be the Fakundo versus Haynes match.
Yeah,
Both
and
would be very entertaining.
I think it could open up big time for an international audience if you have like Rin Sakamoto versus
I didn't even
Masanosuke
think about
Ono.
that. That's a
Like if you have those two guys facing each other, the international audience is going to be tuned in for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's more than just these previous teammates, previous targets, matchups. There's that aspect as well. But now let's go into the U23 Pan-American Championships, where 3 Penn State wrestlers competed. Luke Lillidahl, Levi Haynes, and Connor Mirasola.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't have a ton of info on this. I just know that about the result, which I guess is all that matters, and everyone got gold.
Yeah.
I mean, did you expect anything different though?
No. I was interested to see what Connor Mirasola did.
That's what I was gonna mention as well.
But with his background, he dominated.
Yeah.
It was a 4-person, 92-kilogram bracket,
Yep.
and he won 2 times by tech fall. Now
Yeah.
it's freestyle, not folk style, so it's
True.
different wrestling, but still, it's still wrestling. You're still,
Yes.
in a sense, competing the same way. Everyone went undefeated. Lillidahl outscored his opponents 31-0.
0. Yeah.
Like that, I think that's insane. That is including a medical forfeit at the end.
Okay.
So, like, I don't think there's too much. If there is any scoring involved in that, it's not a lot. On a medical forfeit, I don't know if they have to officially give a score. If it's like a 2-1 or 1-0 type of thing. But 31-0 showed why he's one of the best in that weight class. And then they're all going to then compete
Later in the month, I believe.
Yeah, they're all going to compete the U.S. Open.
Yep. And
Later
it's
this
later
month.
this month, yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be competing. There's going to be more. I know Marcus Blaze is competing in that.
Yep.
I haven't seen anything about PJ Duke yet. He could be. I haven't. It just hasn't come across yet. But there's going to be a lot of Penn State guys wrestling in that, and we'll probably have more coverage on that after
definitely.
that because there's going to be like double-digit Penn State wrestlers in there.
Yeah. So yeah, I think with this you look at obviously with Lillidahl and Haynes, kind of expect that, but with Mirasola you just kind of see because you didn't see him much this season at all, really.
Yeah.
Actually, not even a little bit. So you just want to see how he looks, and I mean, he kind of did, great for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be interesting if he can It's going to be interesting if he can try and maybe, I'll say, compete with Josh Barr for 197. I think that's Josh Barr's spot, but just to see, Connor Mirasola was a high recruit as well, and it's such a deep team. It's just very It's some of these competitions that could be had are really entertaining. I think that would be one of them. I don't think Josh Barr would lose his spot, but just to see those two wrestle, I think would be just fun.
Yeah, and we've seen reports that like the Mirasola twins are ready to be unleashed.
Yeah,
like they're ready to go, and might see. There's a stronger likelihood we'll see Cole Mirasola next year at heavyweight.
Definitely.
And Connor, here and there, if Josh Barr needs a rest or is injured or anything like that, we could see Connor Mirasola.
Or maybe kind of similar to what they did in the Drexel match, maybe where they had Lucas Cochran. Maybe instead you get Connor Mirasola in there.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, so that really. This team is just They lose a bunch of guys. not even.
They still
like,
have to lose more.
Yeah, they still technically have to lose more, but they lose a couple guys, and we're still talking about how deep this team is.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking when you brought up where Mirasola could possibly compete at 197, we didn't even bring up Lucas Cochran.
Well, Lucas Cochran was at senior day, but I believe he's listed as a junior.
He's actually on here listed as a soft. Well, that's last year. It's listed as a junior. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he still probably has some.
He might have a year of eligibility left. Is he someone though that we see transfer?
Possibly.
He could be.
Yeah,
He
that could be another transfer name as well. So still a lot to unfold in the offseason, and
yeah, definitely.
the buzz for college wrestling is still very much there after a big NCAA tournament.
Yeah, especially with some of these recent commitments and new wrestlers entering the portal. There's still a lot of things that could happen before the start of the season.
Yeah. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Matt Return. I'm Andrew Deal.
I'm AJ Piazza.
And make sure to stay tuned for more off-season coverage, as a lot is still to come here for Penn State wrestling. Speeding off.
All right.